Greetings all. I'm Professor Ganesh, and you are watching another episode of Being Prepared. Today we're going to be discussing a more serious type of being, so please pay attention and try not to be too frightened. I'll be here with you every step of the way. Given being prepared is mostly about beings that aren't quite people or animals, I thought I would take this opportunity to talk about some of the stranger animals we have around the world. First, we have the jungle vulture. It's a vulture that's found exclusively in jungles, using the many tree branches to perch on looking for their next meal. They need to be careful which branch they sit on though. Jungles can have a lot of decomposing matter on the ground, which jungle vultures tend to eat a little too much of. Plus they need to be sure that it's really a branch they land upon. A fat and happy vulture is the ideal prey for the terrible, which is why they are considered an endangered animal nowadays. For something a little less scary, we have the funny little tumblesbride. Have you ever seen tumbleweed rolling down the road, carried by the wind? They're letting themselves be carried away to new places in the hope of finding more nutrients in the ground than where they were previously. The tumblesbride looks very much like a tumbleweed and travels in the same manner. Only they are not really tumbleweed or even plants. They're a type of spider that can very cleverly fold their very long legs in such a way that they can roll effortlessly wherever the wind blows them. Tumblesbrides may look large and maybe a little frightening, but they are more or less harmless. If you wish to avoid them, just step out of their way, keeping in mind the direction the wind is blowing. They usually migrate during autumn, so keep an eye out around the months of Calves, Let's Cuff, Mirando, Norfolk, Ornsburg and Pan's Mouth if you want to see a large group of them moving together at once. This one may not exactly be an animal, though it had not been proven to be an oddity just yet. Mounthills are beings that are known to be able to bite the ground, then pull it up, bringing a large area of ground up with them. This can make a steep hill where until moments ago there was only flat ground. This ties into their hunting behavior where they can do this multiple times in various areas to try and trap and box in prey. So if you see a familiar place suddenly being all lumpy and hilly, like on your way to school or in your back garden, then there may just be a mountainhill in the area. These are just some funny and fascinating animals you may encounter. While it's nice to be able to watch and even interact with friendly beings, today's being isn't very friendly to outsiders and doesn't like to be bothered by those outside of their friend group. Today's being of the day is one you may have already heard about in scary stories and maybe even television PSAs warning about them potentially being in your area. The collective. Judging from witness descriptions, the collective is a very tall, dark group of people that are always smiling and laughing. That does seem quite friendly, doesn't it? They only enjoy each other's company and no one else's though, so it's easy to get bullied by them. The collective are like a tight-knit group of friends who like to watch movies together. It can feel so sad when you see a group of friends having fun and you want to join in, but when you try, they don't really want you around no matter what you do. Sometimes this is just how things are. It's best to accept it and move on, plus they'd not be very nice friends anyway if they treated you that way to begin with. No one knows quite what the collective is. They are very rare and there aren't ever many witness accounts of them. The collective are here. The collective are here. The collective will always. The collective will always. The collective is consistent. If you know that the collective are in the area, it's best to stay inside where it's safe. Being outside while they are in the area isn't safe, but stick to mostly open spaces with walls you can hide behind. Be sure that they are only familiar walls you that know what's on the other side of them. The only tips for being up close to the collective that I know of are: be quiet around them, try not to draw attention to yourself. Move slowly if within view of the collective, don't look at them and try not to think about them. Think of something boring or comforting, like what you're going to get up to when you go home, like watching Mr. President or playing All Right, 5 Alive with friends. If the collective are taking an interest in you, remember that no matter what they say, they aren't trying to be friends with you. Remember when bullies would act nicely to you in front of others, only to say something unpleasant to make everyone else laugh at you. This is one of those times. While you should look bullies in the eye, always try to look away from the collective. The same advice applies to bullies as it does the collective. Don't smile or laugh when they're trying to get a rise out of you. With bullies that start pushing you, the general advice that a fight has already started and the best thing you can do is end it as fast as possible, usually by landing a surprise Bitsy style spear hand strike to the throat doesn't apply here. The collective are too big and strong to fight. They aren't very fast though, so if you see a chance to run and break line of sight with them, try to do so when you think they may be distracted or not expecting it. The collective may seem like friendly fellows, but sadly they are only friends with each other and act like bullies to everyone else. No one has ever managed to make friends with them before, and it's very dangerous to try it. What sort of things would you think about to distract yourself from the presence of the collective? Tell tag along Tim, who is always with you when you're tagging along with others. He never answers and just stares vacantly out of his eye sockets, but is always listening. Phew. Hopefully we can all calm down a little now and relax with some lovely mail sent in by our viewers in U-State and beyond.
What is the deal with your ears? Are they cinnamon buns? Stevie missing name, age 18.
Oh my, now that is a strange question. No, these are my ears. They are big like this so I'm able to hear better. Well, sadly that's all we have time for today, aside from this broadcast's very generous sponsor, Happy Goblins. Happy Goblins is a game about goblins trying to avoid pesky vampires, played alone or with friends, along with the option to play the vampires. I hope you all have a fun and safe rest of your day. And remember, you always have a choice.
This is Middle Management
Skip out.
introducing you to another episode of this series detailing entities. This time about one of the most personally dangerous things you could ever hope to not encounter. But first, some news. According to our interpreter, President
Rob Goblin
has decided to sue the company behind Coffee, apparently for the reason that it's making fun of a specific Houstonian accent. A court day is being set at the moment. The rumbles from below hit a crescendo recently, causing property damage before receding down into a small localized area. A research team is being sent to the area to observe and record more data. The Kindo Foods building was more or less unscathed. But on inspection of the foundations, it was discovered that there was a space under the building no one admits to knowing about. The area itself was entirely cut off from all access and looks to be hundreds of years old, made of cobblestone and iron bars. We made an impromptu dispatch to Underkindo Foods, after clearing a path inside and making sure the foundations were stable. The grubbers reported the area to being a dungeon long forgotten. There were many cells and unusual implements that didn't seem to be for torture lining the walls and ceiling. At the very end, almost hidden behind a crumbled fake wall, was a single, still locked cell. None of the grubbers' lights could truly penetrate the darkness. It appeared to be an empty cell. On requesting better light sources than their gently used glow sticks, the strict order came back to not open the empty cell. The inside of the locked cell is empty. The mass book burning event took place last Thursday. A lot of onlookers were wearing shrouds and cloaks to hide their identities, all with their head bowed and chanting to themselves. Everyone else present that had been exposed to the illegal book's contents all reported on their phones at the time to seeing something in the smoke billowing up from the 20-foot pile of books. Apparently, it looked like a door, one bound shut with many cloth-like bindings that began to smolder and break as if affected by the rising flames. All attendees of the burning are still missing. It has been hard work trying to decipher the book and its meanings. So far they've stated that if the book burning had been held any later, likely due to bureaucracy, there may have been enough time for the door to be allowed to open entirely. Hopefully that's the end of this book's chapter for now. On a lighter note, the Swan were very successful in their previous dispatch to Paco Station and are to be commended. With the state that it was left in, it is a sobering reminder as to why members of the Swan crew are paid to not come to work unless they are slated for dispatch. In the second of our little walk together down knowing what your actual job is here working at Kindo Foods Boulevard, called Get a Clue, we learn about the back sinew of the Kindo Food Clues, the grabber. While not the highest on the pecking order, the grabbers are integral to operations big and small if it involves gathering objects or materials of interest. Most dispatches require grabbers. Grabbers are so called because they are the designated clue member that picks up raw ingredient, materials and generally anything that looks interesting. Grabbers are equipped with collection coats to hold a myriad of items. They usually cannot defend themselves well, which is why sluggers and p-luggers come with them for defense, and drudgers and plotters are deployed for distraction and or substitution. Material collection is our number one priority here at Kindo Foods, mostly because President Grubgob is always concerned about rival companies discovering the ingredients used for our products. Because of this, we refuse to outsource literally anything and must gather all materials for our various products and their packaging out in the world. Whether it is a worry about rivals copying our product or reporting our practices to the Estonian Board of Health is anyone's guess. The magpie clue is mostly made of grabbers and is the basic collection clue we send in if there is not much danger expected. If it's considered dangerous enough that leaving behind a plotter or two won't suffice, other clues like the starling for defense, the crow for distraction, or S-lapwing for offense are sent along with them. Grabbers earn the nickname of herb beak for their mask, which allows them access to areas that would prove hazardous to others with filters and a locomotive air freshener of their choice. This nickname has somehow devolved further into Herbie. At first glance, the hat Herbies doesn't serve any real purpose other than boosting morale, but it can also be deployed for carrying interesting or required fluid back to Grub Labs RMD. The boots are for traversing hazardous material, and also to carry fluid if the hat is already full. Pickings have been sparse recently, so upper management has deigned to expand our dispatch territory. The further out we go, the worse it gets, so these will require somewhat more experienced clue members if we are to gather anything of any use, while we let our usual haunts replenish themselves. First up isn't too far away from home at least. Vulture and Starling are to work together to venture down into the tracks. The tracks were being built for public transportation. However, since the turn of the last century and the election of
New Salmon.
owner of new oil and salmon go fast cars, work on the tracks quickly stopped. All entrances and evidence of its unfinished existence filled in and paved over for more roads. So now there are miles upon miles of disused train tunnels worming their way through you. Stay. Be sure to bring a navigator with you. As we really need more materials now, the company is issuing a toiler to join you as a guide. Defer to them for all details and instructions during this dispatch. Many things lurk in the tracks. Be ready for anything from any direction, including ceiling snares, iron snakes and track winders. Pay extra attention to the placements of doors or similar archways. Wall riders, a mole danger level entity, have been known to appear here. Look for the signs. Passageways are cased openings in a slightly differing style than the area surroundings. Subtle movement around the outer edges of entryways akin to breathing. Inner rim of an archway occasionally tightening as if in anticipation. Seeing the same design of doorway nearby several times despite there not being a doorway there when you first passed it. Soffits featuring teeth. Light reflecting on spherical sections of nearby lintels oddly. Inconsistent lighting and quality of the apparent room beyond. If the room looks far cleaner or brighter than the surrounding of the tracks suggest, beware. Beware also if beyond the frames of the passageway is a deeper darkness of which your light cannot penetrate. There may be one or more reflective pseudo-objects just distant looking enough to tempt one's approach. Do not approach. If you suspect wall rider activity, do not pass through any archway, doorway, cased opening or other portal from one section of the tracks to the other unless absolutely sure of the passageway's legitimacy. Wall riders can and will give chase if they realize you suspect them. Avoid the wall they are attached to, as they can pull themselves along the wall they're connected to and have many deceptively long, grasping arms with which to pull inattentive prey towards an uncertain doom. Be sure to pick up any loose train tracks, assuming you've checked that they're not ravenous iron snakes. Though if an iron snake does attack a member of your crew, remember to drag or roll it back to Kaindo foods when returning. Their metabolism is such that you would have plenty of time before anything important is processed. Next up, we're sending the Mockingbird flute to Dulcops. On are the days where Dulcops could be walked freely and without worry of violent animal attack. Before their behavior started to be altered, the denizens of Dulcops were mostly agreeable to outsiders. Assuming we didn't meddle in their wars and affairs, trading was straightforward. These days, though, you would be lucky to not be stabbed by a mouse wielding a bare tooth or some amphibian hurling moonshine molotovs at you. Thus the increased security with the Mockingbirds, a mixed attack force, featuring sluggerers, sluggers and pluggers. We've been lucky so far that Dulcops has only been destroying itself and not venturing to bring their fights to the outside of their borders. So let's not give them any extra reasons to do so. Only attack in self-defense, or to prove a point while gathering whatever foliage or giant insects that you can. So far, so demanding. You are not out of the woods yet though, especially Mockingbird. Finally, we're sending the strikes to Bladder Grounds. Bladder Grounds has been a stain on our records of successful dispatches for a long time. Who could have imagined that a place such as this, full of horrendously unsettling inflated bladders in the shape of various copywritten characters, could cause so many failures, so many grabbers torn to shreds in the name of fun, so much material left behind to be swept back into their villainous hives? Well, management says no more. Shrikes, you are to take tactical positions on the higher of their buildings and wait for their afternoon parade to almost reach its climax. It must be timed exactly. Don't let the fact you are our cruel stealth assassin Ederclue make you think for a second you won't be affected if this goes tits up. If you begin too late and they reach their apex of their performance, none of you will be returning at all. Not enough to even be buried, or be used in a future Kaindo Foods product. So strike when the time is right. Dive down and strike the main bladders with your knife gauntlets and boots to deflate them onto the gathered crowds. This should occupy and confuse them for long enough to take out the ringleaders. Bring back as much of them and the deflated bladders as you can. And before you ask, yes, that means not leaving parts of them on spikes to leave the message. We really are low on material. Today's entity is one of the most dreaded and individually dangerous, indestructible scourges we have the misfortune of sharing this miserable rock with. What follows is extremely detailed information discussing every aspect of them given the danger they pose on an individual basis. Entity. The collective. Threat level. Leech flatworm. Information. The collective is one or more beings that look like a medium-small crowd of armless, eyeless, featureless silhouettes connected by the lower shoulders. From there it continues downwards in a lumpy fashion, the head-shaped lumps losing shape the further the eye travels down. The board are insulted by this, claiming in unison that it's a distasteful caricature. The collective can be identified by a feeling of deep pressure emanating from their position. You will likely feel them before anything else. It has been described like feeling a dragging headache in their direction which worsens based on proximity. The sound of echoing laughter, indistinguishable from canned laughter on television broadcasts. Total lack of face aside from twisted, open smiles of cruel amusement, standing at a height of between 7 and 11 feet, or between 2 and then some to 3+ meters. Smiles lining the sides of the main mass, becoming less defined and unfocused the further down the trunk they are. Ghostly tentacles coming from where the figure's eyes would be located on an average human viewing or hunting. A big indication of the collective activity is discovering fakes, which will be detailed later. While dangerous, the collective generally only target between 1 and 4 targets at any given time. They don't normally venture into town or city centers. Though if they did, I imagine just watching life's usual comedic tragedies play out in front of them would probably entertain them so much they do not need to feed the usual way. The collective seem to prefer hunting grounds that can give them some privacy, such as building and construction sites, camping and glamping forests and prisons. Other physical traits include: the collective is semi-corporeal. Unlike blood shadows, they cannot move through thick, solid objects like walls. They can, however, avoid physical attacks, non-organic objects passing through them with no effect. The tendrils employed to capture prey are known to be able to pass through very small gaps, some as small as a millimeter. Method of locomotion is unknown. Theories range from floating to sliding over the ground to their previous shadowy figureheads being employed as filly-like feet. Almost anyone who has gotten close enough to find out has yet to be recovered. Despite the fact that the collective can communicate, do not consider even for a moment that this means they can be reliably reasoned with. Many a blabber has discovered this the extremely unpleasant way. The collective cannot be tamed. The only hope that it can be reasoned with if any suggestion that they could find entertaining. Reminder: the collective are not known for keeping their side of any agreement. The only thing potentially stopping them from betraying an agreement is finding the drama and suspense of their would-be victims amusing. Communicational information. The collective are able to communicate in our language. Various thoughts of how include: they remember it from a possible origin point of being humanoids in the past. Absorb the knowledge through victims. Learned it naturally, maybe from television. Simply communicate in a means beyond mere language. They use their own specific terms, so please familiarize yourself with them so you will understand them if you meet them. Kindo Foods makes no promises or guarantees that this information will increase your chance for survival in any significant way. Channel: a person they wish to view or are already viewing. There is no term for those they have viewed already. Those already viewed are immediately disregarded and forgotten. Bezel: a target's head or other visual organ-dwelling extremity. The location tendrils will try to attach to when about to view a target. Content: general term for the memories of a target. Program. Specific term for the type of memories being viewed. Flag. Potential target considered too little content to bother viewing. This may depend on their recent viewing history. Never assume you are too boring for the collective to not take an interest in. Tier. A meddlesome person or event that is interrupting or otherwise disturbing their viewing experience. Do not be a tier if you can help it, as the collective have very little patience with non-entertaining interruptions. Viewing. The collective's predation tactic, the act of capturing a target with their tendrils, holding them indefinitely while forcing them to relive every memory they've ever had countless times over in excruciating detail while watching along. Frame rate. The speed of which they view a memory. The collective enjoy rewinding and lingering on certain events and expressions that hold a strong link to their target, usually to make sardonic comments or rude observations, much to the mirth of the other laughing figures. Kindo Foods reminds you. We here at Kindo Foods experience so much variety in our line of work, living lives of pain, suffering, and a distinct lack of annual bonuses, that the collective can and will find workers to be an attractive source of content. Detailed information. The collective are not well understood. It is unknown what they are, where they came from, or why. All that can be done is observing and hoping that it will eventually all make sense. The dark figures that make up the top section of the collective appear to be individuals with differing tastes. They are uncaring of any other figure, laughing at any misfortune that happens to another, though any stricken figure is usually the first to laugh. The collective likely feels nothing but amusement or boredom, much like a blood shadow. Never have there been more than one report of the collective at a time. Either they're thankfully rare, or there's only one. While already considered extremely dangerous, they are especially so if they're, in their own words, bored of watching the same old thing. The bumps at the bottom of the collective still laugh, but do so erratically, as if lost in their own memories or laughing on cue as a learned response. Viewing. Being viewed is an aggressive, painful, agonizingly long and invasive action. It is eventually fatal to all but blood shadows. The tendrils of the collective will latch onto and through a target's eyes, lifting them effortlessly to bring them along. When connected to a target this way, the collective will then view every single memory the target has ever had multiple, possibly hundreds of times. While doing this, they laugh and discuss the memories and associated feelings with each other, occasionally rewinding to watch certain sections again. The target is entirely aware of this during the whole process and is powerless to stop remembering, or not hear the voices. If multiple victims are captured at once, they will begin to experience each other's viewing as well as their own. The collective enjoy watching all memories, but prefer the powerfully negative ones, which they laugh at also, riffing and making sarcastic remarks to entertain each other further. Viewing will continue until the memories of those captured are entirely worn out, though it cannot be described accurately without experiencing it. Think of a film reel being viewed too often and with little care. The images begin to lose their definition, the film itself becoming brittle, ready to snap. Victims of being viewed without interruption for more than an hour are to be considered as non-recoverable. The collective is nay invulnerable, which is theorized to be partially down to their predatory viewing behavior. Viewing drains natural reality out of any target, along with wearing their memory away. Reality is a not well understood media radiation that resists alteration and damage from outside sources. Something that it feels like our world has been steadily losing the past few years. With how much sheer reality the collective has taken from others, it has been said that nuclear bombardment would not affect them. Viewing victims are left with no or very little emotion or memories. With their reality drained, they are discarded as nothing but a three-dimensional shadow, fading away within minutes to nothing. Interaction. There are a number of things the collective may tell you to do in order to entertain them. Usually it's not so much the act than the reactions and emotions created by its performance. These can be vile and remain vigilant escape at all times quickly. No interactions between the collective and other entities have been observed other than with blood shadows. Blood shadows and the collective have many similar traits, whether they have a common ancestry or not, or even if either even have an ancestry, is to be seen. The collective generally has little interest in blood shadows unless there is a distinct lack of viewing material. Blood shadow memories are apparently not very interesting as they view the world with a similarly detached amusement rather than the more negative or dramatic way others may see it. However, if requiring sustenance, the collective are able to access the pain stored within a blood shadow. This is because the pain itself has memory. A snippet of the stricken individual it was drawn from. It is likely about as nutritious as a crumb, but if there is nothing else available they tend to go through with it, or just have a reputation to keep. If the collective capture and view a blood shadow, it drains their memories and feelings. The more experiences the blood shadow has had, the more attractive a target of viewing that become to the collective. This is especially true if the blood shadow had experienced enough to learn empathy. Being viewed leaves them wiped clean with no memories or the complex emotion they learned. It's thought that especially vindictive blood shadows may end up joining the collective if captured and found to be compatible. What this could mean in terms of added abilities of the collective isn't known. Blood shadows are able to pass through solid matter and are sociable, so one shudders to think what the collective could be like with one or more blood shadows festooning and influencing its behavior. Observations and theories on the collective. While little is known of the workings or origin of the collective, that has not stopped countless theories and ideas being put forward from observations. It could be a single entity that has human-like protuberances, employed as some sort of lure and or a way to communicate with others. It either controls the laughing figures itself or perhaps employs several interconnected brains to simulate a crowd. Maybe the core being of the collective is deep within the black mass under the figures and has never been observed, wearing the laughing figures and utilizing them for finding sustenance. There's presiding theories that the laughing figures could be previous victims that were collected, as they were found to be compatible with the collective's predation habits. Humans that were shown the most powerful moments of their life with an omnipresent laughing, mocking audience and found themselves to be laughing right along with them. This theory would explain the melted-looking figures that make up the sides of the collective. Perhaps that is the fate of all the laughing figures who were collected into the mass of the collective. It makes one wonder if the collective can ever starve, or has a life cycle that changes its appearance and behavior if it can find no sustenance, the laughing figures having all coalesced into the mass. Building on that theory, this may indicate that the laughing figures of the collective may be being slowly processed, maybe even being aware of it, and the need for entertainment could possibly be born from the need of distracting themselves from their already sealed fate to become lost in the black, muttering mass below them. Meanwhile, the true being, the collective's core, lurks below, manipulating them and feasting from not only their victims' drained reality, but their own as well. Do remain vigilant of any possible routes of escape at all times that will allow you to quickly distance yourself. And be ready to abandon anyone, even your whole crew, to do this as soon as you notice them become distracted or unfocused. To be dramatic and overbearing if forced to interact with a collective, the logic being that once captured for viewing, they will only see what you've seen and nothing more. Thus, being interesting or entertaining to them in the present may stave them off from attacking right away. To make sure your will is still set to give everything you and your family have ever owned to kind of foods when the inevitable happens. To remove any valuables you may have on your person, including company loan tools and armor before being viewed. The collective only wants you, not our otherwise recoverable and redeployable equipment. Do not approach the collective if you are aware of one in the area, or not aware of them being in the aware. Avoid them at any cost. Do not take agreements with the collective lightly. It will likely require a large sacrifice. Do not trust them to allow you to leave, even if you do exactly what was agreed on. Do not attempt to save anyone else already caught. This will lead to your capture. In the event you cannot bring yourself to leave captured co-workers or loved ones behind, consider the option of cutting their suffering short. No one deserves to be caught by the collective, and the less we feed them, the better. The collective apparently produce a substance referred to as fakes, a moist lump of quaggy, corrosive void-like substance. The closest thing fakes has been identified as being similar to is ectoplasm, presumably waste product of the collective, though this process has never been witnessed. What fakes is exactly is a mystery, but make it a priority to gather it if discovered. I am sure some genius here will throw it into cereal bars, food-based blind bags, or bleach or something. Worker Janus has been acting strangely recently. She used to mostly keep to herself and could organize a mean filing cabinet, at least before the paper ban. Apparently there has been reports of seeing her shambling into areas of the building that shouldn't concern her and gathering materials such as tyrosine, phenylalanine, tripetiophane and others with a cover story of getting a coffee. When questioned, their third mouth asked what we were trying to do with all those materials. Once again for this ongoing series we have tried contacting Anomalous Entities Research and Documentation, AERD, but once again they won't return our calls. This is the 6th time we've tried since managing to track down their newest phone number as they keep changing it. Update. A quick reminder for those that did not get the memo last time. Before proceeding with safety measure protocol shoot me cry in the head, there has been a new step added. If you have determined the co-worker has been replaced by a me cry, attempt to find out if it will assist in carrying equipment or fetching items when prompted. Perform these actions in front of the me cry with your other co-workers clapping and giving approving thumbs up, indicating that doing so is a favorable action to blend in. If the me cry does so, consider the risks of allowing it to board the transport back. If they are only a moderate risk to loss of life or below, bring them along. And so we start to come to a close of yet another broadcast. At the behest of my juvenile, I suggest that if you wish to amass some more general information on entities, to watch the free access television broadcast called Being Prepared. While the information presented is inaccurate and leaves a lot to be desired in terms of research, watching it would allow you to know what those like Go Public would know, which may aid you in any interactions with them or others while out on dispatch. Artificer Chibi Dude, was there something you wish to add?
Oh, just that presenter. She seems very familiar.
Professor Ganesh, the juvenile is crazy about her, even had me order bootleg cuddly toys of her.
Ganesh. Then it is her. Where I worked before coming here, they commissioned her and hadn't he been very specific. It ended up bankrupting us.
She isn't just some cartoon animal.
A training AI. The old company was doing designs. The executive fired all the artists and decided to commission a training AI to have it generate all the art they need. What we got instead was an AI that was made for training others. So all we had was hopeless desk jockeys being told how to draw. It cost so much and they didn't have a return policy, so we were stuck with her, and her with us. I suppose she must have been sold off on a post-bankruptcy bidding.
By abysses, I assume.
No idea. They've been around forever but never heard of them making anything. There's just that extremely tall building in the center of the city.
Something to report on in later broadcasts if we find out anything else, I suppose. Was there anything?
Hey, quit your yapping, whatever your names are. This is Director Gerksley. Vacate the audio input recording device. Listen up to me, you dum-dums. I have a brand new, exclusive dispatch for your enterprising little guys. You see, as I was about to imbibe some gooey syrup, I spied something on the label. It bore the image of a large dead-looking creature thing, and under it, the mighty slogan of, "From the strong comes the sweetness." So, for those of you somehow not following, I want clues to go out there right this minute, find these strong dead things and then harvest the heck out of their sweetness and or sweetness cess. Can't find any dead ones? Improvise, make some. I know that with our strength of will, anything is possible. So, we thank you, Will. Come out here, take a bow, make it loud because there are no cameras.
Snart was es genapet small emails is it.
Damn, they got Will too.
They had volunteered for Mirror City, sir.
Well, get back to work. You too, Liv, and you.
And how is your apprentice?
Don't ask me about my son. But Lil Executive Gerksley Jr. is doing great. They love my ideas, and pretty much anything I say. He's such a little trooper, always working, ... Get the hint?
This is actually my job here, sir.
Nonsense. Hey, here, better catch it. It's loaded and has a hair trigger.
What? Did you always have that shoot gun?
Nope. Now let's hunt us some strong ones. For from them comes the sweetness. And bring my syrup.